Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. It's been a very long time actually since my last video that I made. It's been about a year and a little bit more I think, but I'm back and today I'm going to be doing a video about background removal, stippling and also flattening your background. I want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to the channel. I think we hit over 1,000 subscribers a few weeks ago, which is amazing, really. I did not believe that would ever happen on any channel I thought I might make, but I appreciate it greatly. So yes, we're going to be making a video on stippling and background removal. I'll show you some little tips, some little things that you might run into when you're doing it, some small problems. I'll show you what tools I'll be using. I'll have some different views, so I can have I'll have a few different views, but mostly it'll be under the microscope because there's not a lot to show you, but I can talk you through what I'm doing, and then you can replicate that in your own work. So yeah, thanks again guys for all the comments and subscribers and likes. Let's get right into the video. Thanks again guys. Okay guys, so here are the tools we're going to be using in today's video. Here you can see is a 96-degree graver, sharpened up. As you can see, it's been fairly well used and these recutting really. As you can see, the sides are a bit short, but they'll do the job. Here we're going to also be using my stippling tool. It's very just kind of roughed up, just nice to a point, and basically just made to how I like it. And then finally we've got the flattening tool. Basically it's a similar tool, sharpens up to a point, and then it's just got a very small flat on the end of it, and then I just use like a small rough sharpening stone, just dabbing it on the stone to give the end a bit of a rough surface. That's about it. So cheers guys, thank you. And last but not least, our background removal tool for removing our backgrounds. Nice and small, fairly straightforward. Let's get on to the video then. Hello guys, and welcome to the first part of the video. It's just a few quick clips of me doing the line work, not all of it because it would fill up this video very quickly. But if you guys would like to see the entire video, I can put together that if you would like to see it. It would be quite long, but maybe 30 minutes, but it's possible and I can upload that for you. Also, if you would like to use the same designs as me in your own work and follow along, I have a link in the description where you guys can download and use the same designs that I'll be using in this video, with a few other ones that you can use at your own pace and at your own leisure and do in your own time and practice along. So thanks again guys, and we'll get now into the main part of the video of background removal and stippling. Cheers guys. Okay guys, so welcome to the first, or should I say second part of the video, but the first real part of the video. So here we're under the microscope, and basically, as you can see, we've got all our lines done, all our line work's done, and I'm just doing this small portion in the middle here, which is the part we're going to be removing. So as you can see, I'm just using a 96-degree graver, which is the same graver I use for doing all the line work. I'm basically just here making the depth of our background. So what we do is we come along the inside of our lines, so where we want our background to be removed, and we're just doing basically another cut side by side our outside line, and just tilting slightly towards the empty space. So we're just leaning the graver slightly to the left, basically just to give us also just to keep us away from our actual line work, so we don't risk damaging our scrolls or anything like that. Also it's gives us a better guide for when we use our flat graver in a minute. So we're just going along each line and getting our depth. Depending on the depth you want, you can do this a few passes to get the correct depth. But here I'm just doing a single line single cut on each outside line to get the depth I want. A good trick here when you're doing this is basically once you've cut these lines, you can use your fingernail and just kind of run your fingernail across the line just to kind of see the feel for depth on the line. And if you're not getting enough kind of catch on the line, you feel like you not getting enough kind of your fingernails not catching it, and you can go back across and do a couple more passes until you feel like the depth is correct for you. And you can also do that trick once you've done the flattening, which actually is probably a better time to do it. So when you've done all the removal, flattened it, then come with your fingernail and just check the depth with the fingernail for feel. Basically, it's all about just practice and knowing and feeling for the correct depth. After you've done this a lot of times, it becomes a lot easier, and you can do this just by eye, just by looking down the microscope, and just the feel when you're cutting the graver and the resistance you have basically gauges your depth. Here we go, we're back in focus here now. So yeah, just finishing up here on the last little line here. Again, it's not too complicated. We're just doing exactly what we do with normal line work, but just doing it on the inside there, and leaning slightly towards the middle. Hello guys, and welcome to the next part of the video. As you can see, I forgot to record the first part of this, but I got about halfway and realised that I wasn't recording, but here we are. So as you can see, I've removed that part of the background using my flat graver. And here you can see I'm just working horizontally and just taking my time and working up towards the edge of my scroll work. And when you get towards the end where it is about now, you just want to slow down. As you can see, I just peeled away from the edge there slightly just to make sure I didn't hit the walls of my scroll work. Here I've noticed that there's some slight high spots in the work, and I'm just coming along and just slowly whittling them down and just taking them off bit by bit. Take your time and really just look for them high spots and work them off with your flat graver. You can see that I've actually kind of taken my time here to really get those as flat as possible where I've already removed it, where it's shiny there. I'm trying to remove any kind of lines or imperfections, so it's much easier when we come to flattening and stippling. We get a really nice flat background. You might see some engravers or some people actually they don't use flat gravers at all, and they just use like a 96 or whatever and just run their graver out multiple passes, and they kind of miss this step of getting it really nice and flat for stippling, and they'll just kind of jump to stippling very fast, and you actually don't get a very good quality background at all. So here we can see we're just working our way around. I'm just starting on the outsides here and working my way in towards the middle. Makes it a lot easier. Also, you get the awkward part out of the way first, so you're not not worrying about it later on. So just taking your time, really just working. You might catch the wall now and again, but not worry, you can tidy them up later. You can almost tidy it up with a flat like I kind of did there. Slowly working my way around. Again, just keeping your graver nice and at the same angle. Again, slowing when you become close to the walls, and just raising your graver so it just flicks off the edge. So here now I'm working my way from the middle because I'm clear to clear and nothing really I can hit here or damage my work. So straight across, nice and steady. Trying to maintain that. See, I just stopped there. Coming back, starting a new line. And just trying to just following that line, trying to keep it nice and flat and flush. So every cut you do is exactly the same depth, so you don't get high spots. Here, see, I'm just coming along, taking that little high spot off there, where you can see the little lines in the work. There's little high points of metal. You really want to try and get those as flat as possible to make it much easier when we come to flattening and stippling. Here we go, just taking off that last bit, a little bit of a slip there. That's where you want to just slow down as much as you can without affecting your ability to work. So there we go, just taking, you see, just nipping off those little high spots. Here we go, just carried back on before I started on that middle line, just working my way. nice and slow. You really don't need to rush this, because if you slip, you can really do some nasty damage to yourself and the work, really. So you just want to keep it nice and steady. Again, slowing down here towards the end and just picking it off. A little bit of an awkward corner this, because you notice that actually, because you're raising your graver towards the end, so you actually have a much higher spot in that top corner. So you need to come back and just whittle that down to the same depth as the kind of middle part of your background. So you just got to work steady. So you're just taking off those little high spots. Again, just digging a little bit deeper there, so just towards that point, because I know that that's much higher than, because I've lifted my graver there to flick out the piece of metal. Slowly just working against the walls, taking off what I need to take off. Again, this is all just patience and practice, and doing it nice and steadily, and not rushing any of your work. Nice and steady. Nearly there now, nearly finished basically all the background removal for this part of the video. Again, removing that high spot. Taking it nice and steady around here, watching the back of your graver so you don't catch your scroll work. Really important that you do that. Again, if you're having trouble with that, you need to basically increase the angle of your graver. If you find that you get a lot of heel drag and you're going, or especially if you're doing a deep background as well, when you're sharpening and using the Steve Lindsay templates, you want to basically raise your template up against the sharpening stone so you have a much higher cutting angle, so you're cutting more vertically. That allows you to allows for your graver to not catch on the walls of your work. If that's an issue you crop up to, that's the trick to solve that one. Again, here we are, just taking off that high point where I said that we were probably going to have problems. There you go. See, just nipping off those little points. There's another one. See, just notice, and there's the little things you need to notice just to make sure your work's really up to a high standard. So there we go. Hopefully you can see me in the camera. Welcome back. So, quick problem you may occur when you're doing your background. Get my handy little brush for a pointer. So, as you may have seen in the video already, we removed our background and we used our flat graver for cutting it out, and our V graver for cutting our outline or our lines. Right. So here's a quick diagram of what we just did. So imagine this is our cutout background. In our case, we only did maybe 2 passes, for example. But here I'm working at a 0.5mm depth, right? So, say if we wanted to do that, let's just say it was 5 passes with a flat graver to get our required depth. Basically here you can see I've just done some lines representing the direction of cut and our flat graver. So we've done, what's that, 8 passes wide, okay? So you may notice there's a slight hump here, and basically this is the problem I'm trying to explain. You might find in your work when you rotate it in the light that you might see this high spots. You'll have like there'll be light in here and then dark in the middle, and you get this weird contrast that is very noticeable. And also it doesn't help when you come to stippling, because the light won't work as well with the stippling, so you'll get kind of light reflections and stuff like that, which you don't want. So this problem can be resolved by basically just coming back and repassing over your high spots, and maybe starting kind of on these inside ones, taking that off, and then basically using your flattening tool, right, just to flatten out your background to get it as parallel as possible with the bottom. You might be able to do it if it's just a small hump. You could probably do a lot of it with just a flattening tool. You could just come across and just flatten it, and not worry about passing again, doing another pass with your flat graver to avoid the extra time and effort. So that's basically it. Just a quick cover of that problem, which may occur with you. It probably will, because I do it a lot and it's quite a common problem. But that's a quick explanation of it. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next bit if there is a next bit. Thanks again. So basically here you can see I am doing now the flattening process. I've got a little video in the bottom left which is under the microscope, and the large one is just me from a kind of top-down view. They're not synced up perfectly, the videos, so it's more about just the technique really. So the big video is showing you kind of the angle I'm holding in the tool at, and you know, roughly kind of rotations and the speed that I'm moving at, so you get a good idea of how I'm doing that. And in the little video in the bottom left, I've got a bit more of a close-up. Unfortunately, the way that the angle I'm holding the tool, it's not super easy to see exactly where the tool end piece is on the metal, but it's not super important. Mostly it's to show you kind of what it looks like really, and the kind of the flattening process. So here I'm just kind of working my way, starting in a corner. Also, quick note: the corners, as you can see there, you want to you can't get in there with the flattening tool. Not the flattening tool, the flat graver. When we're removing the background, quick thing to note is just to come back into those corners with your 96 and just take out any metal there that you missed with the flat, because you can't get in there. So just remember that little tip, to get in there with your 96 and clean out those corners so you got a nice finish in there. So here I've just zoomed out a little bit on the microscope. So basically what we're doing here with the flattening tool is we're just taking off any kind of high spots and making it easier for when we come to stipple our work. You'll get a lot better finish. It also, the way that the flat on the flattening tool works, it basically kind of mats the metal, so you can see where we haven't been, and it's a lot more shinier, which is basically where we haven't flattened. But the reason we do this is because also it gives you, when we come to stippling, you don't get those little reflections that I have mentioned before, and so it helps reduce that. So you get these. So basically, we're just making these little matte flatted areas. So it becomes a lot easier when we come to stipple. We get a lot nicer contrast later on. So just slowly working my way around. As you can see in the big video, I'm basically just kind of doing small little rotations and kind of working my way around the area and just taking off the points that are high. A good thing to note here also is a thing we mentioned earlier about removing our background, and this is a prime example of it really. As you can see, there you go, we're zooming in now. The big video's run out of footage, so I'm zooming in. You can kind of see it's kind of darker in the middle, and it kind of fades to a light in the corners. So it's a good example. As you can see, actually, we've got a slight high spot in our middle, and that's how we know, and that's how we decipher that. It's where you can see it's dark on top and it's shinier in the corner on the edges, because you naturally lean towards the kind of the outside, so you get deeper on the edges and it's higher in the center of your work, which is the problem I was describing earlier, where you basically need to come across and take a little bit off the top just to flatten this out. It's a good example, and it shows you the way the light works on your work. And you can notice it that it's now high in the middle and lower around the edges. So in an ideal world, obviously this is a practice piece, but in an ideal world you would come back and take that middle bit off where it's darker, and get it flat and parallel with your sides, so you've got a really nice flat bottom. But here here we're just doing it as an example, so it's not so important. So we've done that. Now we're working our way up towards our top piece. Here we go. Again, sorry for the poor footage, but again, it's more of just an idea of how the flattening looks. You can actually get a slightly better effect. My tool here I'm using is actually slightly kind of twisted on the end, so I have to almost rotate my tool in my graver holder to get a nice, because it's not exactly flat on the end, so it has like a slight tilt on it. So I have to rotate my tool to kind of get the best angle for flattening. So you can do a better job than what I've done here, and you get a much more flatter effect, because you can see on mine there's quite a few kind of lifts where it's kind of digging in almost. But for the purpose of the video and and for this background, it does this very virtually similar job, but you can do it. You can do a lot flatter job. See how it's kind of a little bit kind of like it's almost skidding about almost and digging in one side. That's just because the end isn't exactly dead flat. I'm sure you guys could do a much better job than me, but again, it's all just preference and playing with your tools to get them working the way you want them to work. But we're just removing all those little lines from our flat graver and just getting it all nice, kind of one texture, one color for this. So when we come to stipple it, it's a lot easier. We get a much nicer effect. So there we go. We've pretty much finished there now. Just doing some nice little touch-ups on the corner. We're going to zoom out here so you can see. So there you go. As you can see, it's dark in the middle. You see that darkness? That's where the high spot is. So thanks for that again. Cheers, guys. Hello, guys, and welcome to the last segment of the video. Here we're going to be doing our stippling. Just getting started here. So I've just put a stippling tool on, and it's probably a slightly better view here, but you can see we're just doing small rotations with our stippling tool to get the finish that we want. I tend to start kind of in the middle and kind of work towards the edges. But you could just start from the outside if you want to do the kind of the scary a bit first. Start on the outside and work towards the middle. So just working gently along the edges. Just be careful when you're working along these edges, because sometimes if you're a bit too hard on the pedal or a bit too heavy on the pedal, you can slip over onto your scroll work and you get a few dots on your scroll work, which you obviously don't want. So just taking it steady around the edges, basically. As you can see in the big video, basically it's just kind of working in little spirals. You can kind of do whatever you want, really. There's nothing particular that's kind of, I would say, affected more than the other. Obviously circles you might just get slightly better coverage and a better kind of spacing between the dots, but I tend to towards the edges, especially around the sides. I just work kind of more naturally and just kind of following the natural curves of the scroll work, as you can see there in the big video. Just kind of following the side of the scroll work just to get into the tough kind of cracks and small places. So don't worry about kind of having to commit to a certain pattern all the way through. Just trying to get basically what you're trying to get is what you want it to look like. So whatever suits you best, do that, and keep doing the way you're doing it. So just being careful. We're going into the corners as well. Another kind of tight spot, and sometimes you can kind of usually they're kind of higher in the corners as well, so you can kind of slip up and run over onto your scroll work. So just taking it steady in the corners is really important. The main thing to kind of think about when you're doing stippling is just watching the kind of the contrast. So stopping sometimes, taking a look at your work, rotating it, tilting it, seeing where the kind of light reflections are, any points you think you kind of need to go back over. Really just checking for contrast, because you really want it to be the kind of dark as you can possibly get it, to make it look most effective. So just keep checking your work every kind of, I don't know, few minutes, and just making sure you're on the right kind of path that you've set out to complete. Different size tools take different time, so I use quite a broader point on mine, and it seems to work really well for me, and I really do quite like it. Still a point, obviously, but it's not a really sharp point. The dots are slightly wider, and you get a slightly tidier finish. You can use a more pointy one for kind of tight places to kind of finish off the corners. Also, you kind of get a slightly deeper hole with a pointier one, but I tend to find it's not always as effective as you might think it is. Again, it's very much personal preference, and just practice and working your way through different scenarios, deeper backgrounds, shallower backgrounds, and just practicing with different sized points basically until you find one that suits best for you. So I think we're almost coming to an end with the stippling. I just go over it a bit more. So again, I was just zoomed out there a bit. Even in like through the lens, I'm zoomed out more when I'm actually doing the stippling here, because you get a better idea of where kind of points are, so you can see more reflection. So I'm just going back over the bottom there, because I'm noticing some kind of light reflection. See, just any points you might think are higher, and just catching the light. Because when I take away my hand, you can see it's actually pretty nice, and contrast is looking pretty good there. Just going over these points to make sure they're all the same. Just all little circles I'm doing here, just going over the whole thing. Sometimes you can just go back over the whole lot, just give it a double once over to make sure it's the right contrast, the right getting rid of any of those light reflections. So there we go. I think that's about it. Cheers guys, and thank you for watching this video. Appreciate it. Hi guys, and this is the end of the video. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate the time and the comments, and all the people who have subscribed, obviously. Appreciate it. I hope you learned something from this video. Again, it's probably around half an hour long, as they always tend to end up being. But again, it's quite hard to fit the information into a 10 or 10-minute video, so hopefully I'm giving you all the information you need, and I appreciate it. Let me dog. Yeah. So thanks again guys. Again, please subscribe, like, leave any comments you like. It all means a lot, so appreciate it all. Thanks again.